Yesterday was the People's Climate March 2017. I just got back from Greenland the night before. I was honored to be a speaker at the Copenhagen event. There weren't so many people because the weather was a little off, and I don't know, maybe they were a bit tired from the previous weekend with the March for Science that had 3,000 people in Copenhagen. This one had two, maybe 3,000. Um, the people that turned out were all fully committed, so it felt a little moot talking about some of the ice melt issues that I think are pretty well known. So after talking about some of the things besides, yes, the ice is melting faster and faster, and there's a lot of multipliers behind that, and water is the main multiplier. It darkens snow, it gets in cracks and forces them open because water is heavier than ice. And then I spoke about how Arctic is warming twice the rate of the lower latitudes, and that is slowing down the jet stream, causing lazier weather patterns that cause either warm spells, drought, flooding, or cold spells. It really depends where you are next to that wave, whether you're upstream or downstream of it, whether you have this persistent climate event, and that's become a signature of Arctic climate change. It's still some science to be done there, but the emerging picture isn't contradictory at all. Some say it's really the tropics that wags the dog, but certainly the Arctic and its heating, the loss of the reflective cover there, and the changes there, including the extra fresh water that's making it into the oceans, probably disrupting them. That's also an emerging field. The increased nutrients coming out of the land ice that should stimulate the oceans. The experts there are reluctant to say that it's stimulating fisheries, but there's been like more than a 50% increase in the nutrient flux out of Greenland, for example, and that's most certainly somehow stimulating the fjord ecosystems. I spoke about how climate change is we are taking from nature and not giving back. If we were giving back, we wouldn't be in a state of net deforestation, net ecosystem depletion. That's raveled into the fundamental issue, which is our economic system that externalizes environmental impacts. So climate change is sadly just one of many symptoms of our economic system that externalizes its environmental impact. For me, this is an issue of kind of war and peace. It's as if we've been waging war on the environment, and we need to make peace with the environment in a way that's making peace with ourselves. Someone said we need to thaw the ice in our hearts. Instead, we're thawing the ice of the planet. But we need to be much more generous, really, as a species, rather than just taking. But that's really encoded in our economic system, and a lot of us are kind of complicit, but not so much directly, because I think most people do care about their environment. They don't want to pollute and destroy their water and their air, and yet that's what's happening. The events in DC seemed quite powerful. I see how now involving labor is essential to tackling this issue, and also working at the local scale, including states and local governments, because obviously in the U.S. the obfuscation at the Washington D.C. level is really a major setback for efforts to live more sustainably. So these are some thoughts. and I hope everyone is moving forward in a way that puts sustainability more at the center of what we do. Sustainability really needs to be the central organizing principle of what we do, and so climate change is again just one of several symptoms. Others, biodiversity loss, chemical pollution of water and air. These are not directly, the temperature of climate and the ice kind of issues. These are all collectively, again, a symptom of our economic system that externalizes its environmental impacts. So if we really want to reach sustainability, we need to retool our economic system fundamentally, make it internalize pollution. You must pay to pollute. That will obviously make a disincentive to pollute. We need to stop subsidizing fossil fuels. If the free market types are really true to themselves, then let's just agree that they would agree that let's not subsidize fossil fuels. I think you can make a strong argument that you should that you should subsidize renewables. As we make that transition, we're investing in a system that will make our environment healthier for our children and nature that surrounds, and then have all kinds of prosperity benefits long term. So those are good investments. The markets are noticing this. There's politics and there's the economic reality, which is that a lot of companies are taking the sustainability challenge seriously, and they're moving in directions that will make them more profitable, more sustainable. And the prosperity lies in that transition to a clean system. So I think what we have in DC is a fossil fuel cartel that's has full kind of influence on the Republican Party, even though there are many Republicans that care about environment, but their political party has been captive now for some time by fossil fuel interests, being up until that point the most profitable enterprise in history. The Citizens United decision in the U.S. Enabled money to infiltrate politics even more, to the point that it's hard to see that coming out without, of course, repealing Citizens United in the U.S. Seems quite clear this is where we're at. With such a narrow window of opportunity, we have to do everything that we can to ensure that we can get justice and true democracy, and somehow seems like reversing Citizens United is key. It doesn't seem that likely without some kind of political revolution in the U.S. And so if the U.S. is going to drag its feet, the sense in Marrakesh, most recent climate ministerial, was, well, we've got a job to do. We're going to do it whether or not the U.S. Participates, because it's the right thing to do for our children in the future, and because it makes good economic sense. If the U.S. is ignoring this issue, well, it's not at the local scale, and certain states and municipalities and companies are extremely progressive on energy and climate. So it's really a crisis in Washington, D.C., and the electoral corruption that's happened since Citizens United, and so I think we see more clearly than ever the challenge, even some ways to transcend that challenge, but it's going to take the participation of people who realize, and more of us need to realize, what the stake that we and our kids and their kids have in us making this economic and justice revolution.